So I'd like to encourage the young people to come forward to the screens. A little bit later in the worship experience, David Ice is going to play the harp for us. And I want all of us, especially the children and young people, to understand a little bit about King David, who was president or king of Israel, and I think was one of the most beloved kings, right, David? Yeah. He was very loved. He was anointed by God. And the first Sunday we had this series, the Spirit series, Pastor Susan talked about anointed. And King David was one of those that was anointed to be one of the best rulers and presidents ever for the Hebrew people of Israel. But the interesting thing about David is that David, we are told, rose up kind of from the agriculture, a farm. He took care of sheep in the fields. And the interesting thing about David is he was a harp player, this David, but also King David. King David, when he was a little child and he was taking care of sheep, and as an adolescent, as a young man, his harp that he carried with him in the fields around Israel is probably a lot smaller, right?
Oh yeah, a lot smaller, probably maybe 10, 15 strings.
10, 15 strings?
Maybe 20.
Yeah. And I think so he carried this with his sheep, and at night he would play on the harp and he would create songs. And the story goes that King David, as he slept, would hang the harp in a tree over where he was sleeping. And during the night when the wind would come up, that the wind would actually make some magical music, right? Do you want to mention something about that?
Well, yeah, this still happens, and they call it the Aeolian sound, and I can't really do it because there's no wind in here, but it's sort of a...
Oh, yeah.
Just this very ethereal, wonderful, magical sound.
Yeah. So little David, the little boy, adolescent, the young man David would hear that sound in the middle of the night, that just beautiful, mystical, kind of chimey sound, right? And then he would wake up, and that was when he would be inspired to write some of his best harp music. And so actually we assume that most of the Psalms were written by King David, as probably an adolescent, a young man, as an adult, as praise to his God Yahweh. And so what I guess I want to share, and David loves the harp, and since I've known David, he's been playing here. This David, do you want to say why you loved playing the harp so much?
Well, I was looking for a musical instrument to play, and in looking at all the instruments, the one I kept coming back to was the harp, because I couldn't figure out how it worked. I mean, you look at this thing and it's like, how on earth do you figure it out? And I also found out too that it's one of the most difficult instruments to learn. And I figured, okay, that's going to keep me busy.
Wow.
You know, I'm not going to get bored after 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And the harp is totally unique among musical instruments in that we can make those fabulous glissandos.
Wow.
And what's not to love?
Right, what's not to love? So I just want to thank all of you children and young adults for sharing in this, because I think it tells us that young people, children, teenagers can make some of the most beautiful music.
Absolutely.
Right, and really be music that praises God and praises humanity and is a gift to all of us. So thank you. When you listen to David play later, it's just going to be beautiful during the offering. And it's very mystical, it's very relaxing, and it's very meditative. So it brings us, I think, into the presence of God.
And let me add, there is a sign in a German opera house, I believe, that says, God gave us music so we could pray without words.
God gave us music so we can pray without words. Yep, that's beautiful. So thank you, David, for sharing with the children and with our young people and just sharing with our community in general. Thanks.
You're welcome.